But yes, I was telling Impero about this earlier. I loved the angel lore. Actually, no, you guys were here for this. My whole spiel about how much I loved the angel lore in Dark Souls 3, up until the DLC, where it revealed that they were kind of just pilgrims. They were just more Londor shit. But this is cool. Actually getting to see Gertrude, who is the founder of the angel religion in Lothric. And she's like a blind, mute handmaiden who like gets visited by the angels and starts this heretical religion that starts a massive civil war destroys the whole kingdom. And she's just chilling here, surrounded by the angel feathers, guarded by everyone. Because not just recontextualizing biblical terms, but fantasy tropes. Because we're so conditioned to think that all fantasy settings are basically the same, that when a setting like Dark Souls comes through that will use the same terminology, but the actual implementation is drastically different, it really plays with those expectations. Like, Dark Souls has demons, but those demons don't really work the same way as in any other fantasy setting. Dark Souls has gods, but the gods don't really work the same as in, like, D&D and Pathfinder. And Dark Souls, so when Dark Souls introduces this late into the game, into the series, the concepts of angels, you're like, what the fuck? Why are we talking about angels now? Like, we know heaven doesn't exist. There's no, like, celestial, like, afterlife. So why are we talking about angels all of a sudden? That doesn't make any sense. So now you're like, ooh, what kind of weird, crazy bullshit is this gonna be? And so that was like the most, when I finished Dark Souls 3 for the first time, the angel stuff was unironically the most evocative, the most like thought-provoking thing for me. And then I was slightly disappointed when I played Ring City, and it was just a different version of the Pilgrim Butterfly, effectively. But I still think it's very cool from like a the setup and the world building. Like the aura of the angels is still cool. I love Tolkien, but he was for sure lowered variety in mainstream fantasy. And that's not Tolkien's fault, that's everyone else just being a fanboy of him. We use archetypes and tropes to shorthand storytelling, and it's kind of a thing to break through to make stories super unique. Exactly. It's just another tool in the writer's toolkit, right? Tropes can be useful because it's like you plop an orc down in a story and people kind of have a pre-existing idea of what orcs are and how they act, and that saves you a bunch of time from not having to sit there and spend like 30 pages explaining how orcs work, because the person reading it can just fill in the gaps themselves based on the fantasy that they've consumed already. And unless you explain otherwise, they can just assume that it works on a generic, general way that orcs work. Right? And that's useful in that way. It saves you time, it saves you energy. Or, alternatively, you can use the assumption of how orcs work to then turn it on its head and make it play out in a completely different way. And that then becomes interesting, because then the reader's like, oh, that's different. That's not how I expected orcs to work. Which then you can be like, well, if they're not like orcs at all, why didn't you just make a completely different race? And oh no! My finger slipped. I had an itchy trigger finger. You know, you might be like, well, if they don't actually work like orcs, why not just make them something different entirely? Well, the unexpectedness is in of itself a useful tool for storytelling, you know. Having an orc show up and expecting them to work one way only to find out they work differently is can be a setup for a certain payoff or a certain wanting to steer your readers in a certain direction. You know, even if it's just as like a comedy manga where it's like, oh, the big bad orc shows up and you think he's going to attack the cute elf girl, but then it turns out that he's just a chill dude and it's the elf girl who's like the crazy nymphomaniac. And then it's like, oh, now it's a comedy manga where the roles are reversed. Haha, very funny. We've played with your expectations. Honestly, it's a lot like cooking. I like to think of it this way. There's no such thing as a bad ingredient or a food you don't like. It's just recipes. You just gotta find the right recipe, right? Like, you may not like tomatoes, right? I mean, I don't like tomatoes, but you most likely will scarf down pizza and lasagna and spaghetti by the fucking truck full, no problem, even though those are drowning in tomato sauce. You know what I mean? Like, just because something is like, even if an individual piece or an individual trope may not be to your liking, doesn't necessarily mean it can't be used in a way that is still good.
Well, lad, what needs smithing?
You just may not have seen it used in a way that you like yet. And that's the video, everyone. If you've made it this far, remember to like, comment, subscribe, notify, share, engage, and hey, maybe even drop by the stream sometime if you want to catch me yapping live and unedited. And until next we meet, my fruits and nigglets, peace, love, we outcha.